Well, hello my friends, it's Shawn Petite and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is some grungy goodness with a million layers. I love it. I used a lot of supplies today because I wasn't sure where I was going with this, but I'm starting today's project on an 11 by 14 MDF board, and I'm putting down just some random vintage papers that I had in my stash with some Liquitex fluid matte medium. And I'm not worried about the papers or where they're going. What I'm worried about is the shape. I wanted them to kind of be linear and overlap each other, and I was just really striving for texture and that old wall feeling. And so that's also why I used the fluid matte medium, because I wanted them to be bumpy and bubbled and all those kinds of things, because I wanted it to look like there was some layers of life behind all the layers of paint like you would see on an old wall. So I'm just layering all those papers up, and now I have some golden modeling paste, and this is semi-opaque, so it doesn't dry really white. And I'm using a very large palette knife. And the reason I'm using the very large palette knife is because I have very little control over it. And I wanted it to be that way. I wanted to be able to get a lot of modeling paste on my palette knife and put it down and really create some yummy, really thick texture. The reason I'm using the semi-opaque is because I did not want it to dry white. And that's typically not, I usually like to see the white because I can kind of pull that back, but that's not the case for this one. So that's why I chose the golden modeling paste. I switched to a smaller palette knife so that I had a little bit more control in the areas that I'm like, oh, I need a little bit more here or a little bit more there. So I switched to a square palette knife because I have really sharp, I can get some really straight edges with the square palette knife. The modeling paste isn't dry yet, so I'm just going back in with the Spanish tiles and the Spanish elements stencil just to get some really cool, interesting texture behind that'll be behind all that paint. And again, partly because I wanted it to feel like maybe there was something else there underneath all those layers. Coming back with my palette knife now and kind of scratching through the designs that I just put down, because I didn't want them to be perfect. Wanted them to look worn and worn out. And so now that everything is dry, I'm coming back in with a variety of paints, mainly black, Payne's gray, raw umber, and gesso, and then kind of mixing all those colors together, and a gray too, like a regular gray. And I'll have all the supplies listed on the blog, and the link to the blog will be down below in the YouTube description box. So as I'm starting this layering process, I knew I wanted it to be dark and scratchy and grungy, and it played into the story of the piece. But I had this idea of how I wanted the layers to look, and it took me a while to find it. Because I would put paint on, and then kind of pull it up, and then put some more on. And really, honestly, that's the key, is all of the layers. And sometimes I'm too impatient to stay the course and keep doing the layers to get to where I want to go. But I was very patient on this one because I needed to get lost in the process, because there was so much going on in the world that I was like, I have to be able to just kind of zone out and just get lost in this. And that's exactly what I was doing. And so I'm just going to come back and forth and layer this out, and I'll put in some dark, and then I'll come back over and kind of lighten it back up again, put some raw umber in there. I wanted that raw umber to kind of give it some kind of warm, smoky kind of feel. But the layers, all that modeling paste and the stencil design and all that, oh, it is so good. So good. So I am keeping along those linear lines to again kind of go along with that old wall feel. I've got some just regular gesso and my square palette knife here, and I'm kind of accentuating some of those linear lines, and I'm making this area down here a little bit lighter because I knew I was going to be putting the flowers down there. And again, that light represents part of my story for this piece. And so I'm going to be layering back and forth here until it feels right. And it took a little bit of time, but I love the outcome. So I'm coming back up to the top now with more black, same colors. I didn't use a ton of different colors. I just layered them and then would do some dark and then some light and back and forth until it felt good. I am also using quite a bit of heavy body paint, again, for that kind of rough, textured feeling. A thinner paint, a fluid paint, that kind of thing goes on very thin and very smooth, and you don't see the brush strokes. Whereas the heavy body paint, you see everything, and it doesn't blend out as well. You have to work at getting it to kind of flow and really kind of brush it, and that's exactly what I was wanting. I'm coming back now with a little bit of alcohol and just kind of dragging down, kind of getting that kind of striation in the paint pattern. So now I've got, again, heavy body paint, and this is the Vintage Dahlia stencil, and I wanted those dark colors first, and you're going to see how I layer this up as well. So Vintage Dahlia and Vintage Bellflower stencil. All the stencils that I'm using today will be on sale in the shop, and again, those links will be on the will be down below. So I wanted the stenciled area to be messy. I didn't want all the perfect lines, and so I actually went back over a few of them to make them messier. But you can see now I'm being very specific about my stenciling. So I did the dark color first, and then I added a little bit of gesso to my color to get a lighter color, and look at how awesome it looks stenciled over what I've already stenciled. And so I just would match up my stencil to what I'd already stenciled with a lighter color and just kind of add in my additional touches of color, and love the look. And then of course I'm going to come back in and kind of smush it up a little bit and add my painterly touches. I'll add some gesso and some of the color that I added through the stencil, and just make it feel kind of painterly and touch it up just a tiny bit. I'm not going to do a whole lot to some of them, just adding a few brush strokes here and there because they look pretty fantastic the way that they are. I love the look of all the layers on these flowers. They're so thick and textural because I did the first layer and then I came and stenciled over the second layer, and again I'm using heavy body paint, so they're really standing out, really thick and textural. Now I'm just going to add just a quick few flowers here that are super simple, kind of side view flowers, just to add a little bit more to the flower area. Adding just a little bit more gesso to that area to further grungy it up. Of course, it's got to have more grunge. And really kind of extending that light that kind of plays so much into the story. Now I'm coming back in and I'm going to add my leaves, and I'm using olive green and a little bit of raw umber kind of mixed together because I wanted it to be kind of dirtied up a little bit. And so I'll use a little bit of a lighter green, or add a little bit of gesso to it actually, to kind of get my leaves. And I don't really have a plan as to where they're going to go. But I wanted them to kind of be dark and somewhat subtle down there in the dark area. I even used at one point a little bit of the Payne's Gray in my leaves to kind of go along with that dark area. And I'm just adding a few touches of like greens in between of the flowers. But I'm doing it real sketchy, not perfect. And here I am just working on that dark area, trying to find my happy spot. And here's where it all comes together. So I turned it around because I knew that I wanted the flowers on the top, but I couldn't create all the across the top and let the bottom still dry because there were so many layers. So when I turned it around, I could see it better. And so now that it's all completely dry, I'm mixing up a glaze. So I've got Parchment, a Liquitex heavy body paint. It's called Parchment, and I'm I put a little bit of raw umber in it and some Deco Art glazing medium. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, what are you doing? But this is exactly what I wanted. Once I did this, I was like, yes. I got that glaze over the top of it, and it pushed it back and muted it down to where it felt like it was this faded old wall. And I loved it. And so I'm dripping down some of that glaze that I used over the top. I watered it down, and that dripping down part is key to the story of this piece. And then I'm just kind of using a little bit of that glaze, super watered down, to kind of bring that kind of shadow highlight area kind of down into that dark. I'm using a little bit of raw umber and into my glazing mix just to kind of grungy up the top there. And now I'm coming back with a sanding block, and I'm just sanding over the top of it because, again, I want that scratchy feeling like a fresco. And I'm sanding up the edges of those leaves so that part of the paints come off, some of the paper underneath is showing through. It is fantastic. I love it. So now I've got my soft pastels out, and these are gallery soft pastels, and I did a video this week kind of talking about all the different kinds of pastels that I have purchased recently. If you want to see that, there'll be a link on the blog for that as well. But I'm just coming back in and kind of darkening in some areas, highlighting some areas, that kind of thing, to where it might need a little bit of something. I don't want to add too much because I worked really hard to kind of push that all back, that I don't want to bring too much back. But the gray soft pastels in there really were fantastic to kind of look old and aged, and it caught on all the texture of the piece, and oh, it's gorgeous. But you can see right away how that kind of catches all the texture, and when I sand, it kind of brings some of that texture up as well. Oh, it's so gorgeous. So I'm using my charcoal pencil, just a tiny bit. It was really hard for me to not go around everything because that's kind of my thing, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to leave it like it was because it was so beautiful. It looked like an old fresco on an old wall that was just kind of worn and weathered and that kind of thing. And oh man, I just positively loved it. Splattered some Liquitex transparent, muted gray. This is Liquitex acrylic ink muted gray, and then this is Dr. Martin's acrylic ink in silver. And again, it plays a part in the story of this piece. And oh, I love it. It was just perfect. So again, all of the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog is down below in the YouTube description box. I hope you stick around for the conversation at the end because it's a really good one about all the things and what I was needing this week, and what I was needing to hear from others and from myself. And so I hope you check that out. I hope you enjoyed today's project, and if you did, subscribe and like and share and all those wonderful things. I'm writing here the story a little bit behind the piece, and that is it, my friends. All right, I will see you next week. Well, hello, my friends, and happy Sunday to you. Oh my goodness, I am in love. I hope that you guys can see the layers. I mean, the texture, the everything. Oh my goodness, it is so yummy good. So a couple things. For the YouTube hop that we did last week, I have announced the winners. And I'm still waiting to hear from a couple of the winners. So I have posted on each channel's YouTube comment section of all the winners, and I've posted on my Instagram and Facebook page. So if you commented and were wondering if you would take a look, and then you can email me if you are a winner. So, and then we'll go from there. What else did I need? Oh, coming up, so you're going to see this on Sunday the 8th, I think. Yeah, so Wednesday the 11th, November 11th, Mastelle and I will be going live again. And I just love my friend. She's just an amazing soul, and she just makes you feel good. You know those people that make you feel good when you're in their presence? She's one of those people. And so we'll be going live on Wednesday. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Central Time. And also this last week I did a video on pastels. I did a quick overview of some options if you're interested in getting into pastels, what's out there for a really inexpensive price, because I did a price comparison and I ordered a lot of pastels, you know, for research. And kind of priced out very, very low cost pastels and some very expensive pastels. And I had some surprises as I did that. And then I share what I use the most and that kind of thing. It's just an overview And then I will have a deeper dive of soft pastels in the Mixed Media Kickstart workshop that's coming up hopefully soon. Guys, it's been a hard road trying to get things done sometimes in the day of COVID. So, I think that's it. All right, so this piece was inspired by my journaling. Now, I am filming this before the election happened, and you're going to see this after the election, so I have no idea what has happened. But I have this underlying anxiety, and the thing is, I know we're all going to be okay, whoever we vote for, whoever, I mean, will survive. But there's just this underlying anxiety with me that I'm like, oh, I just really want it to be over. And I want there to be rest and peace and just some calm in all the things. So this process was so therapeutic because there were so many layers, and I was just going through all of my layers of my journaling this week and my gratitude and all the things as I was just laying it out there. So this actually was inspired again by I've been writing a lot these last 9 months, and it is where my sanity lies so often, and it's just so good for everything about my soul. It's good for my soul. Okay, so in my journal I wrote kind words, words of love. They fall into the darkness and shed light. They fall softly on the hurting and soothe. Kind words can be the medicine for the hurting. Words of love bring hope. Words of love can calm anxiety. Words of love can build bridges and give life. Lord, let me see your words of love. Let me see them in your people. Let me give them without hesitation, without fear. Lord, let me love like you. And so that's been my prayer. Because there's the tension in all things right now is palpable. And if we could just speak words of love and speak words of kindness to each other, even if we disagree with whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an election or COVID or whatever. We don't have to agree, and we shouldn't agree. It's great to have different opinions and thoughts, and that's how we build a great society and all those kinds of things. But man, is it... Even when you go to the grocery store or whatever, it's tense, it's tense, it's tense. And I am praying for me, for my ability to give words of kindness and give words of love and to show grace. And the thing is that we won't always get them back. And that's the hard part. But that's the part where I feel like I have to dig in deep and I have to pray. And I know we all share different faiths and we all practice things differently. But for me, I have to dig in deep and pray and really be like with my armor on and say, I can give love. I can give words of kindness, even when they're not given back. And that's really, really hard. And so this is my illustration of words of kindness. This is the unkind parts down here. And this is the kind parts. And I wrote how they fall into the darkness and shed light. And so the flowers are words, and it's bringing light. And that's why I wanted this light dripping down here. And that's why I put silver up here, kind of that illumination of maybe stars and light. They fall into the darkness and shed light. They fall softly on the hurting and soothe. They soothe. This is soothing up here. This is not so soothing down here. This is soothing to me. It's soft. It's subtle. It's got the layers and all the things that we have to deal with, but the kind words are there. And it's making it beautiful. It's softening the intenseness of this down here. That's what our kind words and our words of love do. It doesn't dull it doesn't take away the meaning or anything of a conversation, but it kind of brings everything down when we speak to each other in words of kindness, with words of kindness. And I have been practicing that all week long, and with ourselves too. Speaking those words of kindness to ourselves is really, really important too, because we can be harder on ourselves than on anybody. And so these are my words of kindness, and this is the light coming down into the unkind areas of our lives, of our neighborhoods, of our jobs, of our world. And the texture part of it for me really represents that it's not easy, that it can be hard, but it also brings that softness, and I'm bringing it down into here. And then I wrote the words over here, words of love, words of kindness, and I wrote them over and over again really, really messily, because I wanted it to kind of go with that grungy feel. So that is my inspiration for this piece this Sunday. And I hope that we all can find our words of kindness and our words of love for all, and for those that don't give it back. And that we can find our words of love and kindness for ourselves. Because when we do that first, it's easier to give that back out when we are kind to ourselves. And so, loves, I hope your Sunday is restful and peaceful, and I hope we can all take a deep breath here soon. And I hope that your words of kindness are loud to yourself, so that they can be as loud to others. And I hope this Sunday that you always, always know that you are loved.